Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where and when you are watching this newscast. Welcome to This is the Week That Was in Virtualization Cloud and EUC, coming to you from the Virtualization Practice. I am Tom Howarth, and this is the latest episode of the bi-weekly video news roundup. Last week saw the first pseudo conference of 2016 Citrix Summit. This is Citrix annual partner conference. This year it was in Las Vegas. Technically it's a private event for the partners, however, in today's days of social media, trying to mark an announcement as NDA when it's being given at a keynote in front of 3,000 people is like printing it on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and saying it's a secret and don't tell anyone. So what came out of the summit? Firstly, Citrix Workplace Cloud, finally some price drops. CWC is a good product, but it's too expensive. Even after removing the value of product licenses, it still costs about $40 per month per user. Yep, that's per user, to host a database and a few web servers for you. Although they have announced that they'll lower the price for the virtual apps and desktops and integrated apps and data, we're still talking of a couple of months. And further, they haven't announced what those prices will be. They're also going to make secure documents, this is what used to be known as ShareFile, available as a standalone package. Again, no view on costs, but it will need to be cheap to compete with the likes of Dropbox, SkyDrive, etc. OneDrive. They also announced that XenApp 7.7 and XenDesktop 7.7 have been released. This is a much more rounded product than the previous version 7s and 7.5s. By that I mean it's much more like 6.5. Zones are back. For those of you with short memories, this is something that used to exist in IMA, and it was one of the missing features when XenApp 7 came out. Zones allow you to group servers together, and they are mainly only communicate with themselves for load balancing purposes, but they can also fail over for redundancy. Now these aren't obviously the same zones that was in version 6.5 because there's no IMA. Now, but they're backported back from Citrix Workplace Cloud. So it's on-premise versus cloud zones, etc., etc. But the concept's the same, and it will allow you to design out a badly missed feature. Again, you can also finally limit the number of resource-intensive apps in the same way as you could with 6.5 and below. By this I mean you can put applications on a number of servers for any number of users, but only limit them to say 2 or 3 sessions per server. So if you've got a resource intensive app that is very CPU intensive or memory intensive, you don't want to be powering that on with lots of users, and this is a feature that allows you to mitigate that. Provisioning service now supports Windows 10, which is obviously great news. They also announced that 7.8 is around the corner. Now what's interesting about this is that AXV packages can be pulled directly into the FlexCast management architecture, so that you can deploy and manage them from Citrix. Therefore you don't need a separate AppV server and database. FrameHawk has been integrated into HDX. They've also released long-term service release statements, which basically means that they will support a product for a set period of time. Now they've released that for XenApp 7.6 and Desktop 7.6. So for 5 years they'll support it, and then for a further 5 years after that for anyone who wants to give them a lot of money. Now another one that did interest me was Skype for Business, for their optimization pack. For anyone who's tried to put Link in a VMware environment or a Citrix environment, we all know it's basically bend over, turn yourself inside out, upside down and round, and eventually you might get it working. All down to the fact that Microsoft didn't really have a decent API. Now this has all changed with Citrix's Skype for Business optimization pack. It means you can actually install Skype without killing your servers, or with a nice standard Skype interface that everybody already knows how to use. Does this move Citrix back into the driving seat for presentation and desktop virtualization? Remains to be seen. But all in all, at least it's not a backward step. Okay, Veeam have, after what seems to have been the longest beta ever, released to general availability version 9 of their availability suite. So it includes new versions of Backup and Restore and new versions of Veeam 1. Now, having reached the venerable number of 9, what's new? And is this an evolution or is it a revolution? It's a good question. The PDFs point to the fact that it might be a revolution with over 10 pages of new features. But all in all, there's not that much new, but that doesn't mean it's not a very good product. In version 8, it finally brought us the ability to take backups for true archiving. That was their major takeaway for me in version 8. So what's the takeaways for version 9? Scale out backup repositories new. This feature addresses the challenge of maintaining a backup store in a homogeneous storage and the cost of consistently scaling that scaling that to cover the next ever increasing backup profile with a single software defined repository. Now, what scale out storage backup repository allows you to do is to span that over multiple different arrays. Very, very useful. So a little bit of spare storage you have here, there and everywhere, you can store your array on there. You can store your repository on there. Very nice. BitLooker. It's a patent pending data reduction technology. Looks very interesting as it removed useless chunks of data from your backup. Now you've got to remember that Veeam doesn't know what's actually inside your VM when it backs it up. It does now. It will remove things like deleted data, which always came across as a block. It would delete also things like your page file, hibernation files. Now, I know it's been a chunk, it's always been a thing on things like Veritas or semantics environments, but this is new to virtualization aware backup environments, and it's a good move. What's more interesting, if you look at this from outside the box, Veeam Cloud Connect is ostensibly a service broker to allow your backups to be sent to an offsite public cloud repository. Is very interesting, but when you actually look at it under the covers, the product has changed